welcome back to Why We Do It, the stories behind the stories in amateur sports. Sometimes we get kind of professional activities in this. So the strap line in amateur sports can be stretched a little bit, and we're stretching it a little bit today because we are talking to someone who does this for a profession, does this for a living, brackets professional. Rachel Collins, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Good to be here.
Excellent. Rachel, I'm very excited about this one because since I started this podcast a couple of years ago, the whole concept of why we do it as a sporting function, activity, purpose, it's had a psychological framework to it all the way through. And I'm not a psychologist, but the good news is you are. You are a high performance sports psychologist, and it's been a long-term ambition for me to get someone with your experience and qualifications onto the show. So this is absolutely fantastic. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about your backstory in sport yourself. So that's relevant to how the podcast normally works. But we're also going to talk about sports psychology in general, in terms of what you do for a living, but also how that really kind of relates to all the conversations we've had and all the previous chats and all the future chats. So lots of fun to be had in this high impact session we're going to do. So getting straight into it and not wasting any more time. As many people who've seen these before know, I don't normally start at the beginning. We're going to start, this is quite near the end actually in this case.
Okay.
You've sent me some notes, which is great. We'll go through them all in due course. But I want to start with something you wrote right at the end, which is about your current work. So you can introduce that a bit better than I've done already. But you've put this brilliant line in here which says, I absolutely love the work that I do right now, the things you're doing now. So there's a huge backstory, and we will get into that. And it's a heck of a roller coaster, and it's very relevant to where you are now. But I just love that positive line at the end of a pretty tough story around loving what you do now. So tell us why you love what you do so much.
Yeah. So I work with clubs and individual clients, and mainly, with sports psychology, but also delve into kind of everyday matters. And the reason why I love what I do so much is it's honestly just the most rewarding job. Seeing someone transform, not only as an athlete, but as a person, for me, like, it doesn't get much better than that. And as you said, having been through my own journey and experience many tough times and having come out of it myself, I love that I can be the one on the other end that supports somebody else doing that. And it's just really important. It lights my fire.
The fact that you have a smile and a positive demeanor, and that you've got to this place where you're loving what you do so much, considering what you've been through, which we'll talk about, is phenomenal. And I think that if there's I can't think of a better, almost can't think of a better walking, talking example of being able to support people in the way that you do based on your own story. But before we get into that, last kind of general question, the sense of satisfaction for helping others, that must be a huge part of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's just, there's something inside of me that kind of warms and lights up when I know that, I've helped somebody on their own journey. I think it's a big part of who I am, as a kind of helper, but getting to kind of do that as a job and in a profession, it just really aligns with my personal values as well, I guess. So it's a genuine want to help.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a why we do it from a professional job perspective in your case, not necessarily kind of the sport activity only, but because you've also got all that going on. So let's go back to the beginning and brace yourself, folks. If you don't know the story, wow. Here we go. So take us back to the age of 4 and how your kind of sporting world started and how it developed over the years from there on.
Yeah, so sport has been a part of my life literally pretty much since I could walk. My dad and my mum were both very keen to introduce my sister and I to as many different sports as possible when we were little. So yeah, by the age of 4, I was having kind of private swimming lessons before I joined the local club and was racing in the under sevens. When we went on kind of family trips, skiing, I was in ski school at 4. And yeah, I mean, you name it, badminton, tennis, triathlon, trampolining, the list goes on. So for me, it was very much my identity from a very, very young age. And I absolutely loved it, you know.
So that was my first question that sprung to mind.
Yeah,
Did you love it, or were you just doing it because your parents were keen on it?
yeah. I mean, it's a very good question. No, I generally enjoyed it. There were some sports that maybe I didn't, like as much or didn't get on as well as others, but that was fine because we were kind of allowed to continue with the ones that we wanted to, and it was okay to kind of finish up the ones that we didn't. So we kind of, I don't really know how, but swimming became the kind of main focus. My sister and I both went and trained together. My dad would then join in the masters group. So it was a kind of family affair. And, we did that for like 10 years competitively.
So your dad swam, and you were swimming
Yeah,
together.
dad
Yeah.
swam. He thought, I need to just stop, like kind of just watching from the sidelines and kind of join the group.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah, so that was great. And yeah, lots of galas, yeah, it was just great friends, and some I ended up going to secondary school with, which was lovely. So I knew people from sport there.
So
Yeah, it was.
your sister is older than you.
Yeah, so my sister's 2 years older, and
Yeah.
I must say she was probably a better swimmer. She loved the butterfly. I was a backstroker, and yeah, like we just had a really good time. And then
Until she goes to university, and
yeah,
then you're like, okay, woo, here we go.
yeah. So she went off to uni. I was 16 at the time, and we had already sort of started with orienteering a few years previously. Um, my dad and mum kind of got to the point where they were like, actually, it might be good to kind of do something outside and like as a family, something that's a bit more social, maybe. So kind of found a local come and try it event and kind of got hooked on that. And I guess when my sister went off to university was kind of a decision time for me as to, okay, actually, I probably need to choose here because the swimming was great for general fitness, but I was really obviously trying to get into the running and improve that. So kind of swayed more to the orienteering and the running at that time.
So at 16, the swimming starts to slow down because your sister goes away. But at 12 is when the orienteering kicked off.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So which is quite late to start orienteering actually. A lot of children kind of start because their parents already do it and do it from a young age. So we were kind of coming at it at a kind of an older age, but also the training that there is now and the coaching that there is now wasn't really a thing when I was growing up. So my dad was having to kind of teach us a lot of it, but obviously he only knew so much, how to use a compass and how to read a map. So that was quite difficult, to not really necessarily have that kind of coaching support, but there definitely were a few good people, and I ended up changing clubs and there was more junior support, and then my development happened quite quickly.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a second,
After
but I just
that.
want to touch on one thing. I'm
Yeah.
ex-military, and back in the
Yes.
old
Okay.
days, I'm also pretty old. So back in the old days when I was in the military, there was no GPS that actually came in towards the end of my time in the military. So it was all hard kind of paper maps and proper map reading. So
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
a decent exposure to that, and I think I probably tried orienteering once or twice. But I loved the map and I loved connecting with a map. You found connecting with a map was a real strength. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, just being out in the nature with a map in hand and having that challenge. It was something that you don't necessarily get from a swimming pool. Orienteering is always changing, in many different ways. And so just having that kind of mental, challenge for me was really exhilarating. actually.
Okay.
So
And it develops very quickly. So I've thrown a
yes,
picture up here. Here's
yeah,
you giving rockets coming into a checkpoint
yeah.
to clip your card, if that's the right phrasing, and and it's gets quite serious quite quickly.
Yeah. So actually here is it's electronic now. So I got a little
Okay,
tag on my finger and that's an
right.
electronic box. The reason
Beeping
why I'm
it.
going
Yeah.
so fast at this point, it was actually the finish, so that was good. But yeah, I started when I was about 12, and by already like 14, 15, I was in the Southeast Junior squad, which is like the regional squad. So you get to do like a training once a month, and then kind of just a lot more support then in your kind of growth and development. And by sort of 16, I had a coach. We were working out a strategy of the way that basically I could get onto the GB program and elite program. There were kind of tours during the summer that you'd want to get on, because from there you kind of got selected for things, and kind of made that first tour that summer of 2008. So things were kind of moving along really nicely. I was getting a lot fitter in the running. Some days I was training twice a day. It was quite full on. Obviously at that age I was kind of doing GCSEs, moving into AS level, so a lot happening academically as well at the time. But I was just really enjoying the development and feeling like I can be something here.
So you were well on your way to that. Everyone was, I guess, saying and recognizing, as you were recognizing the potential, and the GB kind of elite program was. Did you ever get on that program?
No,
Were you part of
no,
it?
no. So
Okay,
that kind
right.
of
So
we'll get into that.
this is where the change of gear happens.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I'm in Edinburgh. Just yesterday, I was at the
Yeah.
Edinburgh Fringe,
Yes.
watching some shows. I watched a show called The Distance, which is
Okay.
about a former GB runner called Ben Norris, and it's a kind of true and a semi-fictional version of his story, where he got into the GB cross country squad in his late teens, and then basically had a meltdown on his knee, and basically that was it forever. He never actually competed. He got selected, and I
Gosh.
think that's the way the story transpires. He's done a fictional version of it, which he does on a treadmill in this presentation,
Oh wow.
in this show, and and it was all about the kind of build up to that excitement, and then managing what happens after realizing you can't fulfill this dream. So
Mm.
I was reminded of you watching that
Yes.
show,
Mm.
because things take a turn, don't they? And this is a little picture you gave me of the time in your life when things took a turn. Tell us what
Yeah.
happens after the age of 16, just as you're about to start this elite program.
Yeah. So age 16, sort of started to get quite a few kind of reoccurrent chest infections, throat infections, which just seemed to be picking up kind of all the bugs that were around, but was sort of really struggling with kind of coming back from them. And then I'd be healthy for a few days, and then a week later maybe I'll come down with something else, and it was kind of quite a repetitive cycle. I also had something where I was running and I was really struggling. I had pain in my chest and I was coughing a lot. And we sort of did some investigative work with the doctors and the hospitals, and they took x-rays, and everything looked okay. Not asthma. And this kind of cycle just got worse as time progressed. Um, Started to just feel really kind of fatigued, and sort of first of all just thought, oh, maybe it's just like overtraining, or that kind of first thought where it's like, well, if I rest for a little bit, it will kind of blow over. So it took some time out of training, and just tried to recover, but unfortunately things got worse. And yeah.
And this goes on for a while, because in your notes this starts at 16, and then it says age 19 I was at my worst. So 3 years later you're really
Yeah.
struggling. Tell us about that period,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
sleeping and the challenges.
Yeah. So over that course of 3 years, things just deteriorated to the point where I was pretty much kind of sofa bound, bed bound. Really, I can't even, like, it's hard to explain and think back to that time. But some days I would even struggle to get up and go to the bathroom. I couldn't go out in the garden because it was like a struggle to even just like do a lap around the garden. And my days were kind of reduced to just watching telly, just literally zoning out the day, really. Naturally, I became depressed, struggled a bit with anxiety. And obviously, I'm a 19-year-old. Like, there's so much happening, like, socially. I had done a first year at university, managed to struggle through that health-wise. I just wanted to be out with my friends having a good time, and I would for a night, and then I'd spend, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks recovering, and then I'd do it all again.
And that depression and anxiety, not helped by the fact that not that long before you were on a elite sporting trajectory, and you mentioned in your notes that walking around the garden doing laps reminded you of what you were not able to do from a sporting point of view now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, my life was turned upside down. Like, I was very fit. And as you said, I was kind of planning and aiming to kind of represent my country. And then I'm struggling to go for a walk around the garden. The support at the time was not great. There was a lot of question marks as to what was going wrong. I was kind of a ghost, like, as the shell, like, there was the body, but there wasn't really anything going on inside apart from how do I live like this? It's tough for, like, anybody at any age. But having been so fit and just having that love for sport and those kind of social connections, that mental engagement, that physical challenge, to just waiting to see what was going to come on TV next.
You say it's tough. It's tough at any age, and yeah, definitely. And I talked offline before. I've had a blessed kind of on and off sporting exposure kind of life, and I got into my 50s without ever really having any serious injuries or illnesses when I was doing sport, which came in phases. But then knee issues in my 50s, and now I'm managing that. But I've had so much before that. You're 18, 19, and all of this is happening, and all the potential and what you should be doing. You talk about socializing, all of that's taken away at this phase. You say any age, but at that age in particular, it's got to be so much harder.
Yeah, in terms of just development, like teenage years, obviously you go through so much, don't you? So to not be able to stuff. Oh yeah, and that's the thing as well, because I still had a lot of friends in sport, and it'd be like, when I look back, I wish I'd been a lot more open with my friends. I tried to hide my illness a lot, and not really talk to anyone about it. I had like the odd couple of like really good friends that I felt like understood, but I feel like the problem was at the time, because people wouldn't probably really understand what it was truly like, I'd rather not have them half understand and not get their support at the time. I just thought it's just easier if I just don't have their support at all, which, looking back now, is obviously probably not the best thing. But I think there was a big part of me also that was in denial. So if I don't tell people, then I can pretend this is all not happening.
I'm starting to hear so many threads that I think are going to come in later on. There's so many little headings popping up here. So it's 5 odd years of this before people start to actually put labels on what's happening. Yes. So tell us about initial diagnoses, and then we get to see a psychologist. There's a breakthrough. When you're I think when you're around 21, if I'm reading the notes correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
So just tell us, 5 years in, what starts to to kind of become identified? And that's a long time of not knowing what the heck's actually happening.
Yeah. So after 5 years of hundreds of hospital appointments and trying different things, at home, and just not really knowing, it was kind of, I guess, like, let's rule everything else out. And then the only thing we kind of feel like is left now is chronic fatigue syndrome. And how that started, they couldn't tell me. I remember clearly that doctor, I was sitting in her room. I remember the room like it was yesterday. And she just said to me, "Oh, well, there's no magic pill for it. You'll just have to rest and eventually your body will recover." That, like, after 5 years, that's then what I'm told. And you think to yourself, what do you think I've been doing for 5 years? There was we can do you a graded exercise program. And other than that, try to eat healthy and try to sleep. Now, at this point, the fatigue is so bad, I'm already sleeping 13 hours a night. I'm waking up and feeling unrefreshed. I'm having to nap during the day. Like, it's not the kind of sleep that's like, invigorating. And I came out of that. And although I'd finally been given a diagnosis, I felt probably at my worst mentally, because I was like, well, what now?
Where do we go now?
Where do I go from here? Like, honestly.
Give me something to work with, and that's nothing.
Yeah, exactly that. Like, give me a plan, give me something to get my teeth into, and like give me some motivation for life. And I'm so fortunate, and I'm in debt to my parents for the financial support as well as the emotional support that they gave me to be able to seek private help. Because quite honestly, if I'd carried on that journey, like, I don't really know where I'd be right now. If I didn't have that help that I received from a clinic in London, who knows? Like, times were bad.
So before we get into that help, because I think that help does actually make a big difference. There's another diagnosis in 2020. So there's two things, and I couldn't quite figure out from what you sent me if it was two things or whether the second one was the actual one.
Well, no, this is the thing, because I don't quite know if it was the chicken or the egg, right? But the kind of years progress, and I'm sort of getting better, but I'm still not what I would call like normal. Okay, I'm still not functioning as a normal human being at that age should. So we have some more private tests, blood's done, they get sent to a lab in Germany, and it comes back that I have a very high level in my blood of the what causes Lyme's disease, so the Borrelia virus. And in orienteering, it's very common to get bitten by ticks, and we always check ourselves. You take it out as quickly as possible. If you see a target rash, you go to your doctors, you say, this is what it is, like, give me some antibiotics, and you recover. Whether I didn't get the rash, it was unidentified at the time. I honestly don't know, but basically it was then chronic Lyme disease.
Untreated Lyme's,
and that could well have happened, and then the chronic fatigue was a fallout from that, or the chronic fatigue was from some other viruses that I got, but maybe I had Borrelia at the same time. I don't know the timeline personally, because it was years later that I got tested for it. It could have been in my blood all that time, might have been later on, like, I don't know. But so that was kind of good to find out as well, because then obviously there were some protocols and some other things that I could do to kind of help.
So finally, there were some things you could actually do now.
Yeah, something that I could actually get my teeth into.
So the physical recovery starts, and the mental and psychological recovery starts because you go to see a psychologist in the middle of this.
Yeah.
And you say that this was life-changing.
Yeah, so I'd seen a few therapists, as you do, like, naturally, to try and help. But this one was specifically had many clients from the clinic that had chronic fatigue. She'd also had it herself. And that for me was a game changer, because for the first time I felt like someone actually understood. She wasn't a sports psych. She didn't have a background in that. She was an integrative therapist that had chronic fatigue. But for me, that was really what I needed. And actually, I think the psychological journey was up there with the physical recovery, because I started to realize that I had to also change my behaviors and my outlook on life to work in tandem with the physical recovery. And that to me was life-changing.
Okay. Can you give us another line on why it was so life-changing? I think we're going to be drifting through this into what you do for a living.
Yeah.
So what was that connection between those two things?
Yes. So obviously the physical recovery was very slow. It was a lot about patience. It was a lot about trying new things, accepting the fact that some things might not work and others do, and just kind of try and go through the motions. The problem was, if you hadn't already guessed, I was a very high achiever. I wanted to be the best in everything that I did. I wanted everything to happen yesterday. And what my brain was telling me was not what my body could do. Now, without my brain and my mind being on board, like the physical recovery wasn't going to happen. I would push too hard in, the exercises or the walks around the garden that I could do in a day, because my brain would say, oh, this is really good. I feel really good today. But then I'd crash the next day.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of in that sense.
That rings a massive bell for me right at the moment, I've got to say. I'm coming back into running from a long-term knee issue, which is not a problem at the moment, and I have to continually hold myself back because I just feel like I'm feeling great for the first time in a while running, and I'm like, let's go, and you're like, no, let's not do that.
Exactly.
Steady.
It's like physios usually get upset because their patients don't do any exercises, and then there's a small group of us that just overdo it.
Yeah. I'm actually not very good at exercises either, but I do.
Okay.
I'm starting to run more, and that's getting me excited. And I was running last week, and I started to turn the pace up a bit because I felt I could for the first time in a while. And I was going, why am I doing this? I really do not need to be doing this pace. I just want to. I just like it. Yeah.
I get that completely.
Yeah. So and then things are coming together nicely, and you decide actually this is what you want to do. So you tell us about getting into qualifying to be a sports psychologist yourself.
Yeah, so I think I'd always had a kind of interest in sports psychology, but didn't really know if it was like a real kind of thing, or is it worth doing? Can I make a living out of this later on? And then in the end, I just kind of felt like university is, a way to kind of progress. You don't necessarily have to work in that later on if you don't want, but it shows that you're capable, right? So I said, right, I'm going to do it. At this point, I'm 21, so I'm a mature student. And having just kind of been where I'd been, you kind of get that life's too short to worry too much. I was like, I need to do what I love and want to do. So I go to a local university in Canterbury, in Kent, and did a 3-year undergraduate course in sport and exercise psychology, and loved absolutely every minute of it. It really sung to me as being a sports person, but also the kind of personal journey, the psychology side. We had to do actual psychology modules as well for it to kind of be recognised by the governing body. So that was really fun, just like a whole different type of psychology, not just the sport. And then I meet my Swedish partner, and we both finish uni in the same year. I move over to Sweden. I lived there for 15 months. I'm working as a personal trainer in a gym, and it wasn't really what I wanted to be doing. I enjoyed it, but it didn't have enough of that mental element for me. So I said to my partner, right, okay, I want to do a master's degree in sport and exercise psychology. had a look at a few courses in Sweden, but a lot of them were both body and mind, and I really just wanted the psychology side of things. So I said, well, how do you feel about moving to England for a year? And he was like, yeah, great, let's do it. So we both moved to the UK. I studied at Chichester University. We had a great year down there until pandemic hit, March 2020. My course overnight went online. It was the most bizarre and unreal and a kind of stressful situation, actually, to suddenly have to have all our lectures online, not being able to go in for kind of support with our thesis. But I did my thesis on burnout in sport. I contacted as many elite athletes that I knew, but also friends of friends. And I asked them to write a letter to their younger self of what would you do differently. And it really rang true to me. And it was a qualitative, so with words, it wasn't numbers or anything like that. I then compiled all of these themes together and then wrote a letter myself as part of the thesis to combine all these themes. And I honestly loved it. Yeah, okay, it's stressful because, it's a master's, there's a lot happening, it's pandemic, whatever. But the actual juiciness of that was great.
I mean, if you're going to go through the pain of academics and of doing a master's and doing a thesis, you might as well do it on something that you're absolutely loving.
Love, right? Yeah.
Pleasure.
And I mean, it went really well. It was well received, and from that I thought, that was almost like more of a springboard, because I guess then I'm reading other people's stories and thinking there's something kind of in this, right? These kind of psychological themes that are coming out are really interesting. And I had a decision point. I finished my master's and I said to myself, I need to either do my sports psychology route and become a sports psychologist, or I need to take a different route. Now, for me, sports psychology was amazing and it was great, but it didn't go deep enough into the kind of the human behaviors and I guess just that kind of deeper transformational change. So I actually decided to do a 2-year course in integrative therapy, which is then where I started to learn about stress, trauma, anxiety, low mood, the critical self, all of those things. Which
you almost qualified already in all this stuff before you even show up. Based on what you've
exactly. Because when I was doing that course, it resonated with me so much, and a lot of the tools that we learn, I was already doing with my psychologist. So it was like this really great combination of I can work with people in a sports performance enhancing environment, but also I'm going to support them as a human being, because the amount of clients that I've had that have come to me and have said, I really want to improve this in sport, and then actually that shows through in their everyday life as behaviors as well. Okay, well, we need to look at this part too, because that's going to help the athlete to improve, right? And then
Perfect. So I'm going to jump slightly, and I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm going to now just throw this up because we don't have a picture for this. But I have the screen. Can you see the shared screen? So this is you now as this is your website. This is what you do.
Exactly.
High performance psychology coach, and there you are. You're helping those high performers, and I like this bit here. Let me guess. You're competing at a high level in sport. You've mastered your physical training, your nutrition, your recovery, yet you're still searching for that missing piece, wondering if there's another way to take your performance to the next level. So this is you, and there's more on this website. Let's just say it, rachel-coach.com for folks who want to see more of that. So we started with you love doing what you're doing. So kind of bring us back to you love doing what you're doing in terms of a bit more kind of what you actually do with your work and your consultancy and your support for high performance sports men and women.
Yeah, so as I said at the beginning, I work kind of in two areas, I guess. One is kind of like education. So I do a lot of presentations for clubs, for associations. I decide kind of with the leader what topics they'd like to cover, and I make it kind of bespoke to that sport with examples and tools that people can take away. I do it to both coaches and to athletes, which varies a little bit, but yeah, that I love, because that I can reach a wide audience and I can get people thinking about these topics and about the importance of sports psychology. I think it's becoming a little bit more mainstream now and more recognized, even since I've started working with this like 4 years ago, which is great to see. In the recent like European athletics championships, they've got lots of you can see lots of people visualizing at the beginning of their kind of races, the kind of self-talk that they're talking about. I can hear people talking about process goals instead of results focused goals in interviews, and there's definitely like more recognition. And then also then the other part is then I work one-to-one with clients. So they're people that want to improve, maybe a specific thing. And as I said earlier, I take an approach where, yes, we will work and we will look at that, but also you need to know that we're going to be going deeper. We're going to be going back further along your kind of timeline, and we're going to be making this kind of more of a transformational change for you as a kind of human being and for you as an athlete. So yeah, they're the kind of two areas.
There's about 10 questions that come out of the last couple of minutes of things you just said there that I don't know where to start, because there's so many interesting things in there. I'm going to start in the area around the awareness of this.
Yes.
Because in some respects, it's been around for donkey's years.
Yeah.
You and I spoke offline last week before we did this about I'm in my 50s, and I remember some of these concepts, visualizations, when I was in my teens doing different sports back then. Been a million years since I did springboard diving, but I did springboard diving for a while, and visualization in that was a thing in the 80s. My dad coached a rugby team in South Africa in the 70s, and he got a psychologist in, which was completely groundbreaking.
Wow.
And they won the season for the first time in donkey's years, but then they stopped doing it after that because they decided that it was, I guess they realized that
we've won now.
It worked, but then they forgot why or how it worked. Obviously other things going on as well, not just that. But then that program stopped. So it's not a new thing. It's been around for ages. But it's really interesting that you talk about the awareness levels improving even in the time that you've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and I think that's also around this like movement around just general mental health and recognizing it as, a thing we need to take care of, not just our kind of physical health, but our mental health. And I think because that's become more mainstream, that's also then, kind of played out then into sport as well of, you've got the sports psychology, we can teach you the tools, we can help you with that, but also you need to look after your mental health as a priority, as well as your kind of training and your technical training and all those other things. And so this component is definitely becoming more well known, more openly spoken about, which it's great.
There's also something about the brain, which is an art still in some respects.
Yes.
Physical kind of my medial ligaments and my kind of femur and my quads and my glutes. That's physics. That's kind of biology. That's science. But this is an art still, isn't it? And I guess the understanding and the awareness, the all the education you've done, all the training you've done, it's still an evolving thing. Do you think?
I mean, definitely. I think there's still a lot of research out there being done. I think what's lovely about the mental skills side of things, and what I teach quite a lot of, is that it is backed by neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just me saying that this is great to do. I mean, there's a reason why it's well supported in the research, because they have found certain areas of the brain that activate and create a stronger neural pathway when you do things like visualization, when you repeat things like self-talk. And
so I should come in quickly, because I feel like I need to just
okay.
backtrack slightly,
Yeah.
based on what I said, and not necessarily say it's an unknown kind of it's like a box of black magic now. Probably in the 70s it was an art where there wasn't much science when my dad was doing it and I was in the early stages as a teenager. Now it's the science that's making the difference. What you just described, the neuroscience developments and the constant evolution in that, probably speeding up more and more in the last 10 years, is what's probably making the biggest difference in terms of that greater awareness and the greater realization of how important this actually is.
It's belief. People believe in it. People believe that it's going to make a difference. And if you've got that buy-in, then the teams, the big associations, they go, oh, this is worth spending money on.
And that's the thing I find the hardest, because I believed it in the 80s. I knew it was there. Yeah. I'd sensed it. I'd felt it. Yeah. I had good days. I'd had bad days. And I wasn't an elite sports person in my youth. So, but I still felt the difference that it made. And I believed it was there. And if someone was offering me help with that in the 80s, which they weren't, because there weren't anyone doing it. There wasn't anyone doing it. I would have been snapping it up.
I know,
But
and same
that's
for
why
me.
I struggle to see why people in high performance have had such a late awakening in that.
Yeah, but I guess partly it depends how it's presented to them. Partly it depends how much the kind of the person in charge believes in it. And you know, I understand that sport is difficult in the fact that you're spread across all these areas, right? You've got to get your nutrition right. You've got to get your training right, strength and conditioning, any tactical, strategical things, any technical abilities. And then suddenly then you're throwing in kind of this mental component as well. It can be a bit like, whoa, but certainly how I like to work is integrating that into the training that's already being done. I don't expect people to have to set aside loads of time in between sessions to work on this, because I understand they've already got a lot on their plate. And everything that I've just mentioned is just sport, right? They've still got all the other areas of life going on. So if I can some way integrate it into the sessions that they're already doing, or their daily chores, or whatever it is, then great. Like, they're not having to spend any additional time doing it. And I think
that's why we need about 10 hours for this podcast, because when you start to say things like, oh, that's just their sporting life, you get into managing grievances in real life. You get into kind of work stress if you're not a professional athlete, but close. You get into relationship issues. You get into family problems. There's so many things going on outside of your sport that you're going to carry into it psychologically. And this brings me to one of the last two big subjects here, because time is absolutely flying. And that's around this whole idea that it's fine. I mean, there's sports psychology when you're in a good place, when things are going well. Let's just say that some simplified down to that. And there's still a difference sports psychology can make when things are going well. Your training's gone well, you're physically fit, everything's good, and now it's race day. And there's a difference between being in the right frame of mind or not there. But then there's also when things are not going well. So injury, and I know one of the things you major on, and I guess it leans back to your backstory, is managing people through injury and challenges. And you're also dealing with that yourself again now. This time kind of leg related stuff. So let's talk about the psychology of injury and psychology of injury recovery. And you can plug the fact you're doing a webinar soon about this in more detail.
Injury, illness is particularly difficult for sports people. A lot of the people that I work with, they come because they need that kind of mental support and guidance through it. Of course, naturally, we go and see a physio, we get exercises, we have that kind of support behind us. But who's there to kind of help us through that emotional roller coaster that we go on when we're injured or ill? And having, like you said, I've now had problems with my shin for the last 10 months. I still don't necessarily have an answer. You can probably see some flashbacks to, when I was younger, and you start thinking silly things like, am I ever going to run again? I mean, it's crossed my mind several times, right? And
I'm just going to throw a picture. I'm sorry to interrupt, because it's you have come back to doing some things, and you have been enjoying. So the story, back to your story, you've got back into some stuff, but now you're battling with a second life kind of long running challenge.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I did my first swim run, done a few of them, done triathlon, done some orienteering. Training was consistent. I got a few niggles here and there, nothing more than a few months that I couldn't handle. But this one has taken hold, and I think the difficulty with this injury for me is the kind of not knowing. So I'm seeking, different help, and trying to get, somebody that, can really help me long term. So,
and there must be a fair bit of self-help, because the first time round you weren't trained and qualified. Now you're trained and qualified, and you're going through it again personally.
Yeah. So this time, though, as an adult, this is like, I don't know, a good 10 years or so later, I feel so much better equipped this time around from things that I learned before. But also just that the training that I've done and the tools that I use, I can obviously implement myself. And it's that funny thing, isn't there, where professionally we can teach it, but can you actually do it yourself? Like, how well does this actually work? And for me, it's like real proof and evidence that actually, don't get me wrong, my mood goes up and down because of it. I have tears and I cry over it. And the loss of not being able to run, and that kind of social element of missing out on the training sessions and all that sort of thing. It happens, that's life. But generally on a day-to-day, I have definitely not sunk anywhere near, like anywhere low as I was before. I've generally had quite a positive outlook on it, I would say. But I was sitting at home and I thought to myself, there are so many people that are going through this, and so many people that are going through this alone. Injury is lonely. Not only does it just break and completely just break up your routine, it is hard. You can find other people that are injured, but they're maybe on their own pathway. And then when they recover, I've seen people with similar injuries recovering a lot quicker than I have. And I think, well, that's not fair. I've not broken any bones. Like, how is this possible? And so we're all on our own journey, but I think I have a lot to give and a lot to share in terms of ways that people can cope with a day-to-day of being injured. And that's really what I wanted with this webinar that I'm doing at the end of September.
So tell us when that is, because we have to move on, and you're going to expand on the subject when you do.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's Wednesday, the 30th of September. All the information's on the website under webinars and courses. And it's very easy. Just sign up and come along, and I'm sure that you will learn an awful lot into how to support yourself through injury. And also, I'd just like to say, if that's okay, if you're not injured, you're also welcome to come along, because inevitably, unfortunately, it's bound to happen at some point. So I think being equipped in in advance can also be really helpful. And
I will be on that. I will be there.
Yes, you signed up. Thank you.
Because I could have been that person in advance years ago, and now I'm managing it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that myself.
Better late than never, though.
Indeed. Well, here I am in the situation, so yeah, that's going to be very relevant to me. It's not insurance exactly. For me. It's real. So last thing, this podcast is called Why We Do It. And it's about motivation, and it's about the I guess it comes back to the fact that I was doing ultra marathons many years ago. It's probably why my knees are an issue now. And And someone said to me, "Yeah, that's great and well done, but I can't get my head around that. It's just crazy." And then they said, "I don't understand why you do it." And they turned into the
Mm.
question, "Why do you do it?" And I remember finding it really hard to answer the question.
That's a question.
And I was going, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Just do. I just want to. It's just there. It's in me, and I have to go and think about that because I'm not sure why I do it. So it comes back to motivation in general. Now, this is another hour-long podcast subject, and
Yeah,
we're going to try and do
easy.
this. We're going to try and do this in a few minutes. But what I've learned from this podcast is that either people don't know, or and just somehow, and this is head and heart thing that I've kind of summed it down to.
Mm.
Your head thinks, right, I want to do this, and you never get into it. And then suddenly your heart goes, I really want to do that, and off you go, and you're running at 11 o'clock at night, which I've done just to get a training session in.
Just to get one in,
and
yeah.
and your head's kind of saying, why are we doing this? And you're like, I don't know, but it just feels like the thing to do. So there's a head and heart thing going on there. So people either
Interesting.
don't know why they're doing it, or the reasons are so kind of spread if they do know why. They're doing it for their family, their children, the inspiration for this, that, and the other. They're doing it in memory of someone.
Mm.
They're doing it because they're old, they're at a later stage in life, and it taps back to something they loved doing when they were younger, but they haven't done it for years. There are such a diverse range of reasons, and I guess in high performance, it's probably all different again. But
Yeah.
what's your kind of elevator kind of summary of motivation in terms of a sports psychology subject?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, this definitely easily could be an hour. I feel like I do a lot of work with clients that are externally motivated. So whether that be results, times, selections, prize money, um, there's a lot of motivation within that. And I guess what I also try and help teach is that kind of internal motivation. I think there's a place for both, but I think a balance is very important. So being motivated because we want to be a better version of ourselves, being motivated because we want to be fitter, we want to be stronger, we want to, when we're older, be able to run around and chase after our grandkids, or we want to be able to get the shopping out of the car and into the house, like just that kind of way of looking at it that betters ourselves, and allowing that to be the motivation. And I've been through this journey. I was externally motivated throughout those kind of early and teenage years. And after being ill, I remember one day I lay there on a sofa and I was doing visualization and probably didn't realize it was at the time. But I said to myself, when I'm able to train again, I want to do it because I can, because it's fun, because I enjoy it, not because I'm trying to chase that next PB and the stress and everything that comes with that. And so you kind of start to have this different kind of perspective, and what actually then fuels your fire.
Wow. Wow. Because as soon as you said external, internal, and you described what that was, and I had given a very broad kind of like, this is what I'm hearing in the podcast. As soon as you said that, it went straight through me because it
Mm.
feels like for me, very quickly, external and internal connected. So
Mm.
I did when I couldn't answer that question, why do I do it? One of the things I've realized now, 10 years later, is that in a nutshell, growing up as a kid in South Africa, I was starved of feeling like I was meeting the expectations of important people in my life, particularly
Yeah,
my parents and my father in particular.
yeah,
And because it was such a sports mad
yeah,
society, if you performed well at sport, I started to see that got you recognition, that got you respect, that took you
yeah,
closer to people that were important to you, kind of actually seeing you, appreciating you, and praising you, and
mm,
so out of a strong desire to just feel like I was meeting expectations of important
yeah,
people, sport became really important. and that's what so that's an internal thing, I think, if I'm understanding what you said correctly. The external bit was the bit that gave that verification of it.
Yes, and that's
so getting the results, getting the times, getting the PBs, breaking the records. That's what people were saying. Oh well, good for you. And suddenly you were achieving the internal piece. So it's very deep, and we could go forever on this.
Yeah.
But,
I will just touch on one point quickly. So the results and the breaking records and all that is kind of, what can drive you. What also sounds like is happening is very, very common in athletes is wanting that external validation.
That's the word I was trying to find.
And that's what coaches, parents, caregivers, maybe other even teammates can give you. But if we can't give that to ourselves, that's kind of sometimes where the kind of misalignment and the conflict can happen.
And I probably need a bucket load of help, because here I am in my 50s and I don't need that externally anymore. I'm comfortable with who I am in my skin, but I'm so hardwired to that.
Yes.
That I'm still competing. I was competing until injury in age group internationals, and then I'd stick it on Facebook. And when I performed well, and what's that about? It's about getting the external
validation and recognition.
So getting the picture at the end and getting the podium on a picture on social media, that was the external validation that it used to feed me as a kid, but it's still there. I can't get rid of it. I still get an endorphin kind of feed from that.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, like until you kind of sit down and do the work and unpick that kind of behavior, like what you learn as a kid, although we may recognize it as an adult, unless we kind of do that inner work, it is really hard to kind of change by ourselves, because that's all we know.
I don't need to do it, but I actually do, because deep down it's kind of feeds me. It feels my feel good.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. Oh, that's that could be a whole different conversation as well.
Yeah, Rachel, I think before we get into something else, I'm gonna pull it there, because otherwise we'll be another half an hour in before we blink. So I love the fact you love the subject, because I'm intrigued. I want to say I love the subject too, but I've not done it like you have. But I guess maybe that's why I'm doing a podcast called Why We Do It.
Yeah,
because I'm intrigued and I find this stuff fascinating. And talking to you is fascinating. So thank you so much for coming on, and hopefully I'll come on your webinar, and hopefully there'll be some other things we can do. But
definitely,
it's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you so much, and all the very best with carrying on with helping all those other people, and also with your own recovery from your little niggles. Yes, same goes with your knee. Thank you for having me. It's been fantastic. Brilliant. Talk to you soon. Thanks very much. Will do. Bye. Bye-bye.